Welcome back. All right, so with opening night tomorrow, I wanted to look at all 32 teams. I wanted to pick 3 players who made the rosters on each team. Now, not all teams have 100% confirmed, like put out a big press release on who made it and didn't, but I mean, we're up to, it's almost 7 o'clock Eastern. There's some who may not announce their opening night roster till tomorrow. Or, I mean, they don't technically have to announce it on social media, right? But anyways, going alphabetically from Anaheim through Winnipeg, and I'm going to try to make this as quick as I can, keeping in mind that I can sometimes just keep yammering. I hear it in my head, and I'm like, why are you still talking? So, Anaheim. Gauthier, I think, is going to be a key guy to watch this season. Obviously, when he goes in and plays against Philadelphia, should he be in that game? Should be a very entertaining one. On the blue line, they have both Luno and Zellweger. So, there's some youth on that blue line. I think there's rightfully some excitement around the Ducks as to the fact that they've probably hit bottom. I'm only saying probably because the last time I said the Ducks have definitely hit bottom, it's going to get better, it didn't. So, by saying that out loud, does it mean that I've reverse jinxed my jinx? Doesn't matter. Boston, Poitras, he's starting the season on IR. I'm excited to see what he does this year. After what was a pretty good rookie season before he got injured last year. Beecher, I want to see where his development is this year. And Tufty's made the roster according to the current roster of the team. Again, I haven't seen the 100% final. Oh, no, he did. That's right. They released their final roster while I was putting this together. Tufty, I believe, made it. So I'd like to see him get into some games. I've defended him for a while. I'm not saying he's a great player, but he can work on the fourth line. Buffalo, who have already played 2 games, keep in mind. Kulik, it'll be interesting to see how many games he gets into and what kind of role he plays. Levi, with Reimer being gone on waivers, this means Levi's absolutely going to be playing a lot of games. He and UPL splitting the net should be entertaining. And Zach Benson, who is currently dealing with an injury, but coming off of what was an 11-goal rookie season, I think Benson has to at least double that this year. That's my guess. Calgary, Honzek makes it. Good on Honzek. He had a very good training camp. And what this shows is that if you put in the effort and if you're playing well, you're going to make it. So that's a good message they're sending to guys. Miramanov looked good after the trade from Vegas. We'll see how he does in his first full season in Calgary. And, of course, Wolf, his first season as one of the 2 goaltenders in Calgary. It's still not decided as to whether he or Vladar are going to be the starter right out of the gate. But I think Wolf's going to get into his share of games. For Carolina, I picked Jarvis, who has this brand new shiny contract. Also picked Sean Walker, who is stepping into that blue line, and I think he's going to do just fine. And Drury. This is a team that does need, I think, a little bit of help when it comes to that depth scoring. Drury might be the guy who provides that. Maybe he moves up the lineup as the season rolls along. For Chicago, it's all veterans in Chicago. Taylor Hall only played 10 games last year, only had 4 points. He'll be looking to easily dwarf both of those numbers this year. If he doesn't, that's a disaster. Mikheyev, coming off of a very tough season with Vancouver, gets a chance to start fresh and maybe get some prime time in Chicago. And Martinez on the blue line brings his shot blocking game there. How many more shots is Martinez going to block in his career? How many games does he get into with Chicago? How effective is he? We'll find out soon. Colorado, Ritchie. So not a lot of rookies when it comes to some of the top teams, but Callum Ritchie's going to get his opportunity. Shillington, who may very well be a healthy scratch for the opening game, but I will be interested to see how he does now that he's out of Calgary. And Annunen, who had a good run in the second half of this past season, should get into more games this season than he did last season. The way Georgiev played in the playoffs, maybe he got tired out. Maybe he would have been better in the playoffs had they rested him a little bit more down the stretch and given him, less games during the year. But again, we'll see how the goaltending goes in Colorado this year. For Columbus, Fantilli, his development is going to be huge for Columbus this year. In light of everything else around this team, right? If Fantilli gets off to a really good start, and I got Jiricek up there too, because of course there's a lot of expectation with him on the blue line. And LeBanc, who had a very good preseason for the New Jersey Devils on a tryout, had an opportunity to sign with the Devils, but decided to go to Columbus instead. He's going to get a chance to play with the Devils. Odds are he would have been in the minors or, whatever. And because I'm saying whatever because he probably would have been waived, and then who knows if he clears or not. But signing in Columbus, he has a job at this point. And I think we know from past experience with LeBanc, he can be a half-decent depth scorer for a team. For Dallas, I went with Stankoven because the guy's fantastic. Lundqvist. Lundqvist still being a member of the Dallas Stars, I am legitimately surprised by. Greatly surprised. Considering the way that things went at the end for Lundqvist this past season in Dallas, I was certain he was on his way out of town. DeSmith. So DeSmith in net is going to get a chance to be the backup for Dallas after being the backup in Vancouver, meaning, yes, if he plays in Boston, he'd complete the sweep for teams I root for. DeSmith was good for Vancouver. He's going to need to be good in Dallas as well. He'll probably play about the same amount of games behind Ottinger as he did behind Demko this past season. Detroit, good news. Berggren, it looks like, is on the team to start the season and should have an opportunity to work his way up the lineup. Also on the blue line, Johansson's there. We'll see how their tandems work out and who ends up playing where. And Husso, as they're carrying three goaltenders, how many games does Husso get into? And is he going to be getting the most starts? Are they going to do the rotation of all three? We're going to find out. In Edmonton, I went with Podkolzin, who, of course, is not waivers exempt, so he had to be on the roster, else they were going to lose him on waivers. I do wish him all the best this year in Edmonton. Hopefully he really comes into his own. Emberson, who, of course, they picked up from San Jose. It'll be interesting to see going from San Jose where there's no expectations, no pressure, to going to a market where there's definitely expectations and pressure, how Emberson does. And Savoy. We'll see how many games Savoy gets into and just how much of a steal he was out of Buffalo, or if the naysayers are correct. We'll have some better idea with that once this season's done. Florida, the Boquists are up there. Jesper and Adam Boquist. Both of them, Jesper's not a reclamation project, but Adam on some level is. A lot of potential there with Adam that's unrealized at this point. Florida's pretty good at getting that unrealized potential out of players. And Schmidt on the blue line looking for a bounce back. He is playing a similar role this year to say what OEL did last year. OEL going into Florida, not a lot of expectation coming off of a couple rough years in Vancouver. Kind of turns it around. Schmidt will be looking to do the same thing in Florida. We get to LA. Turcotte is on the board. Alex Turcotte. Akil Thomas. And I actually waited until LA's actual official release because I wanted to make sure that both Thomas and Turcotte actually made the roster. Akil Thomas has that level of talent. He's a good player. So excited to see what he does there. And then Brant Clark. In light of Drew Doughty being injured, and he's month to month, so he's going to be out for quite some time. This gives Clark a chance to play on the power play, to play a prominent role. So, yeah, there's some fascinating storylines around the Kings, and a lot of it involving the younger players. In Minnesota, similar. Ogren on the blue line, right? Huznetdinov, we're going to see, where he ends up on the roster, I think is going to be a little bit higher than where he starts. I think he'll be more prominent by the end of the season. And Wallstead net. Wallstead signs an extension today with Minnesota. It is a 2-year extension worth $2.2 million per season. Not too shabby. In Montreal, Barry Boulay makes the opening night roster. I'm so happy for him. See, now that I've said it, watch him end up somehow being sent down. But Barry Boulay, I've always seen the talent. I've also understood why he gets sent down at times. Kapanen makes the roster as well. And Hudson. So there's a lot of young talent, some unexpected names in this roster too. Should be fun to see how they all coalesce around one another in Montreal's lineup early on in the year. For Nashville, I went with Shea. I went with Stamkos. I went with Saros. I don't know that there's a whole lot I need to add there. Shea will be looking to follow up what was a great year last year with another great year this year. Stamkos, of course, coming from Tampa, will be looking to show he still has it. And Saros will be looking to have a full season this year that measures up to the second half of the season that he had this past year. In New Jersey, and again, they've played 2 games the same as Buffalo, right? Paul Cotter looked great in Prague. Be fun to see how things go for him in North America. Nemitz, this could be the year that Nemitz becomes, a bigger star for New Jersey. And Tatar, rejoining the team, he looked okay in Prague. I don't think he had any points in those 2 games. He doesn't really need to. Tatar's not the offensive player that he was, say, 5 years ago, but he can be a useful veteran, and coming off of what was a bit of an inconsistent season for him this past season, returning to New Jersey could help him out a lot there. For the New York Islanders, Siplikov. Siplikov, of course, one of the few additions to this roster, which has frustrated some, of course, for the Islanders. Duclair, who is one of those additions as well. Both Siplikov and Duclair are going to be counted on to provide some offense and add some dynamic look to that team. And Wahlstrom. This might be Wahlstrom's last go around with the New York Islanders. If he doesn't break through and end up being a top 9 forward by the end of the season, if we don't see some kind of upswing in his production, I just don't know how much more time there's going to be given to him before we see him pushed aside in favor of other players. So this is a big year for Wahlstrom. I'm not predicting a breakthrough or anything, but this may very well be his last year on the Islanders roster unless something gets better for him in terms of his stats. The Rangers, Lafreniere. We're going to be watching Lafreniere, obviously. He had some progression this past season. The expectation is that should continue. It is nice to see Brodzinski getting a regular spot in the lineup in the National Hockey League. He should be seen as one of those guys for AHL players to look up to, the AHL veterans that are waiting their chance. Brodzinski waited his chance. He's made the most of it so far in New York. And Trouba. Of course, the questions about, is Trouba as captain in New York, how's that all going to go? Is it going to be a distraction? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be a problem for the roster. He's still their captain. I don't think it's going to be a problem for anybody. But again, the speculation's still out there, so I put his name on the board. With Ottawa, Clevin. So with Yakimchuk being sent down and Clevin getting that spot, if Clevin struggles early in the season, I guarantee there's going to be a bunch of Sens fans saying, see, should have kept Yakimchuk up. So we'll see how things go with Clevin. Olmark in net kind of speaks for itself. He comes over from Boston with great expectations. And Ridley Gregg, who had he was just 13 goals, 13 assists this past season. He's going to be looking to get a lot more into the net. He's going to be looking to get more helpers. Ridley Gregg should be one to watch this year. Philadelphia, Luchenko is about to become the youngest player to ever appear in the Philadelphia Flyers roster, and I'm here for it. He was seen as kind of a reach when they drafted him in June, and now he's on the roster. So this makes Danny Briere look pretty good, and if Luchenko plays well, this could be one of those storylines we weren't talking about, because everybody was talking about Michkov, right? So I've got Michkov on the board because obviously that is a huge storyline right now, and he is the odds-on favorite to win the Calder. And Fedotov. If the Flyers are going to get close to a playoff spot like they were this past season, it is going to be on Ersson as well as Fedotov to show that they can do it. Fedotov's being paid pretty well this season for a guy who hasn't played that many NHL games, so he'll be one to keep an eye on. Pittsburgh, you have McGroarty. It's his rookie season. He, of course, joins rather than signing in Winnipeg. He's now a member of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Cody Glass, who was brought over in a trade in the offseason. I think he's going to play, I'll say third line minutes, but, with Glass, we'll see if a change of scenery helps him. And Bloomquist ends up being the backup goaltender out of training camp because Nedeljkovic is hurt. Don't think Nedeljkovic is going to be out very long. I don't know that Bloomquist gets into a game. I just want to put his name on the board because I don't know if it's going to happen again. San Jose, Will Smith. So all the attention to Celebrini. I'm going to be interested to see how Will Smith does in his first NHL season. Dellandrea, coming out of Dallas. He's a competitive player. He's not a bad player, and honestly, a move to San Jose should give him an opportunity to play a more offensive role he was not going to get in Dallas, so all the best to him. And Gushchin coming off of a 5-assist game in their last game of the preseason. He was informed this morning that he made the roster. Great news for him. And I think it's great news for San Jose fans as well. The guy gives an effort every night. And I understand that sounds kind of like, well, don't all players give an effort? I mean, yeah, but I'm talking like that A-plus effort. Sometimes teams may have some players that don't necessarily give that A-plus effort. In Seattle, it's going to be Wright. I think Shane Wright, if Seattle's going to get into a playoff spot, I think a really strong season from Shane Wright's important. And Riker Evans. I think Riker Evans has a ton of potential to be a pretty good top 4 defenseman in the NHL. And Chandler Stevenson's name's on the board too because he signed an expensive contract that people immediately furrowed their brows at, said they didn't really like. So Stevenson's got something to prove in Seattle. At least from an offensive perspective, I think we know that, as a 200-foot forward goes, he's pretty good. But is he going to score enough to justify the contract? So we get to St. Louis. I've got both of the successful offer sheets on the board. Holloway had a pretty good preseason. He was a first-round draft pick by the Oilers, has a lot of potential, and hey, Broberg was a first-round draft pick for the Oilers. He has a ton of potential as well, and I put Jake Neighbors on the board. Neighbors had a really good shooting percentage. It'll be interesting to see if he can keep that up or if his goals stay up because he takes more shots. Either way, Jake Neighbors considered to be one of those good young players for a St. Louis team that does have some pretty good young players in their system. Tampa Bay, you got Connor Geekie made the roster. He got suspended from a preseason game. Wasn't that the one that they canceled today? So how does that work then? Is he suspended for next year's preseason game? Anyhow, Mosier is on the list too, and I don't know, maybe he was suspended for the last one they played. It was the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that game was canceled. But JJ Mosier coming over from Utah, not that he ever played there, he was from the Coyotes, of course. I like Mosier. We'll see if he fits in really well with Tampa Bay's system. And Gergenson's finally out of Buffalo. He's been a Buffalo Sabre for a long time. Now he's a member of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Good fourth line energy player. In Toronto, you've got Lawrence, who took a PTO and made that into a contract. He'll be a good fourth liner for them. Pacioretty, who had a really good preseason, and who knows, maybe he gets some top 6 minutes this season with Toronto. Injuries are going to happen, and Pacioretty's proven in the past he can score. Maybe he'll play well in Toronto. Maybe we'll find that Pacioretty thrives in locations where he gets a ton of press attention. And Stolarz has honestly, I'm not saying this as a negative thing towards Wall. I think that Stolarz has a really good chance to, by the end of this season, actually end up being the starter for Toronto. I think Stolarz is an excellent goaltender. That's why I say that. So we'll see how all that goes. In Utah, Yamamoto, he turns a PTO into a contract. And so Yamamoto, this may be a good year for him. He looked good during the preseason. Sergachev has a chance to be the anchor on a blue line, a chance he was not going to get in Tampa for a while with Victor Hedman there. And then there's Dylan Guenther, brand new contract in hand, pretty good season last year. He'll be looking to stay healthy this season. And I think Utah's offense is underrated by fans in general. Maybe by the media too. In Vancouver, Danton Heinen, it looks like is going to get an opportunity to play on a top line. And I've said this, if you see Heinen getting a chance to play on a top line with either Pettersson or with Miller, he might be a good fantasy pickup because he's probably going to get a ton more points than he did any other season. Ratu makes the team. Ratu actually makes the Vancouver Canucks roster, and he should have every opportunity to go out there and prove that he is a success. And a success story for the Abbotsford Canucks would be great. Seeing them take a player and develop him into an NHL level player be great for them. And Lankinen. Hey, I propped up Lankinen a lot. I really did. Pumped his tires a ton. Now we get to see how things go for him in Vancouver. I mean, on some level, like, I don't believe the jinx. I don't believe I can jinx players and teams, but on some level, I'm concerned. Like, man, now if Lankinen sucks, there's going to be a lot of people saying, THG told us he was good. Vegas, Tomas Hertl. His first season anywhere that's not San Jose, his first full season anyways. He joins the Vegas Golden Knights, of course, in a trade, which ultimately caused them to have to move on from Marchessault, right? Because Hertl's contract, you don't have room then for Marchessault's money. So there's some pressure on Hertl to perform and stay healthy. Pearson turned a PTO into a contract, so we'll see what Tanner Pearson has. You got to think it'll be on a fourth line role. And Samsonov, coming off of a very up and down season for Toronto. Will he be a goaltender in Vegas who plays 30, 35 games? And what happens if Adin Hill gets hurt? What happens then with Vegas's goaltending? Will Samsonov be able to hold the fort? It should be a fascinating season with him. Washington. So Jacob Vrana signs a contract with them. It's a 1-year, $775,000 contract. Puckpedia is saying it'll be registered tomorrow. He is on the board as one of those just wild cards. You never know with Jacob Vrana what you're going to get. You just don't. I have no idea either. He had a pretty good preseason. He parlays it into a contract. Would I be surprised if he's waived 3 weeks from now? No. Would I be surprised if he's got 8 goals in the first 3 weeks? Nope. I have no idea what to expect with him. Chychrun, new environment for him. We'll see if he thrives or if he has his struggles. And then Thompson. Thompson, a goaltender who I still think that was probably the steal of the offseason, but we'll find out soon enough. It does mean that with Lindgren and Thompson, you might be able to rotate your goalies, 40 for one goalie, or 41 games for each goalie, I guess. But yeah, Thompson, I think he's going to want to go out there and prove what he can do. And then finally, Winnipeg. Sandberg had a very good year last year, I thought. Now we'll be looking to build on that. Perfetti, he gets his contract done with Winnipeg. Now he's got to show them that he's underpaid. And Nick Ehlers was the subject of so many trade rumors. He is in the final year of his contract. So if Winnipeg has struggles out of the gate, he might be one to keep an eye on because of the fact he's a pending UFA. But that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow this season too, as the players who are pending UFAs. Not discussing that right now, other than with Ehlers here. At some point, I will do a video on next year's UFA class. Not yet, though. It's a little early to talk about the UFA class. I mean, you can talk about it, but anyways, we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching. Obviously, tomorrow we get into the regular season. I did pre-record the first preview video for this season today. It'll go live in the morning tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. And yeah, we're going to get everything all straightened out. And so, of course, I've changed the way that the previews work, so yeah, don't forget to tune in. And if you're curious about, the next 3 days of NHL action, I'm previewing all 3 days. So there you go. That's part of the changes that I'm making with the previews. But let me know your thoughts and which players you're curious to see how this season's going to go for them now that we know who made the rosters for each team. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.